Okay, this is part 2 of how to create a web page from a existing comp. The comp could have been part of a Photoshop document, Illustrator document, a Fireworks document, which I prefer that you use. Fireworks is the best tool for web graphics, not Photoshop, not Illustrator. Okay, now what I did is I took a screen capture of an existing website. We're building CSS on top of the website. So if you haven't seen part 1, you need to go check out part 1. So let's get started. Now in our last episode here, we basically surrounded several div tags inside of a tag called main content wrapper. Now why did I do this? Because it's going to be much simpler to make changes. My whole battle cry for teaching the correct way is when your client or your boss has a change, it's very simple to make change. It's just like playing pool. If you don't have the next shot, then stop the game. You have to have a next shot with pool, just like you have the next shot when you're building documents. Whether it's a Photoshop document, Final Cut document, After Effects document, it's the same technique. You have to set it up the correct way. If you don't, you're going to create a nightmare for yourself. So nobody wants to babysit a nightmare. Nobody wants to spend 45 minutes building a Photoshop document and 4 hours to make changes to it. That's nuts. But that's how people work because they were never taught the correct way. They were never taught to think about the software. So I'm teaching you to think Dreamweaver in this particular case. So now I'm going to create a rule for the wrapper container div tag. Wrappers inside of wrapper main content. Main content wrappers inside of wrapper. I don't need to be that specific. Now the only rule I'm going to apply to this is I'm going to float this to the left. Now, why am I doing this? Well, as you understand when working with floats, if you don't have floats in certain instances, the objects that don't have floats don't recognize the tag because they're not on the same float level. So we're going to give the container tag a float. Therefore, it's going to be less disruptive with the rest of the tags. It's a much simpler, vibrant, time-efficient approach. So the only thing we're going to do with this particular container wrapper is give it a float to the left. Now I could have said float to the right, but I'm picking float to the left. No other settings, just hit OK. Okay. Next, I'm going to set the parameters for the news div, which is this div right here. So I basically take the news div, take a guide, drag out a guide to right here. So that's how big my news div is going to be. My news div is going to be 254 pixels. Now, if it helps you to write it down, if you don't have a good retention to what you just learned, then write down 254 pixels. I select the tag. Now, I understand the difference between selecting this tag and this tag and this tag. Whatever tag you select, you're going to affect. Software works this way. In order to affect, you need to select something. In order to affect something, you need to select something. Very simple. Think Dreamweaver. Select the tag, make a rule. So again, hold the Command key. This was 254 pixels wide. Between here and here is 254 pixels wide. Select the tag and make a rule. Select the tag, make a rule. Now again, I don't need to be this specific. Now if you want to, if this helps your thinking that news is part of content wrapper, I have no problem with that. I have no problem with doing it that way. This way, as you look at your CSS style, as you can see, oh, I see news is part of content wrapper. That makes sense to me. So I hit OK. So I go to box, and this is going to be 254 pixels wide. I'm not going to set the height in this particular case. Just 254 pixels wide, hit the apply option. Okay, now this tag needs to float to the left. If I don't float the tag to the left, the content, which is main content, is not going to go to the right. So we're going to float this to the left. So float left. Now, I also want to have about, let's put in from the top, let's put no pixels. So I don't put 0 because it defaults to the asterisk tag, which was set to 0. So this is the redundancy. Don't set it to 0. It is 0. Now, hopefully you understand it between nothing and 0. Nothing is default. 0 is a value. So to the right, we're going to put this 10 pixels to the right. Now, if you want to go to your guides and physically measure how much space it is, but I'm just going to put in 10 pixels. We're not going to split hairs here. And from the left, we're going to put in 15 pixels. In fact, let's put in Yeah, 15 is fine. Now, I have left and right padding. This adds up to 25 pixels, so I need to minus 25 pixels. I don't have the minus in the top because there's nothing, you can't take nothing away from nothing. Hit OK, make a change, save a change, make a change, save a change. Okay, now going to do main content. Now pay no attention to what footer is doing right now because we haven't created a rule for footer. Okay, so I just want to be clear about that. We haven't created a rule for footer, so ignore footer right now. Main content. Now, how big is my main content div going to be? Let's figure this out. Take a guide, and I put a guide right there. So my main content div is going to be 418 pixels wide. 418. Simple, simple, simple. Select the tag, make the rule. Select the tag, make the rule. So main content is inside of content wrapper. Okay, and again, hold down the command key between point A and point B. This is 418 pixels wide. That's how big I make the div tag. Select the tag, make a rule. Select the tag, make a rule. So this is going to be 418 pixels wide, and we're going to put, let's see here, from the top, let's just go from the top, put 25 pixels. On the left, we're going to put 10 pixels. And from the other left, from the right, we're going to put in 10 pixels. From the left, we're going to put in 10 pixels. Now, I don't have to worry about the top because this has no height to it. So this is left and right 10. Left and right 10, so I minus what? Somebody speak? Yes? 20? Yes. Just kidding. So minus 20. Hit the apply option. This also flows to the left. By floating to the left, the content goes to the right. By floating to the left, content goes to the right. Make a change, save a change. Make a change, save a change. Now I do site nav. Site adds rather. Now site adds basically is going to be the leftover space, which is going to be 331 pixels. But in this particular case, I just want to make sure I have exactly the distance between here and here. So this is going to be dropped down 32 pixels from the top, padding 32 pixels from the top. So it's going to have a width of 331 pixels with 32 pixel padding from the top. So 331, 32. So I select the tag, make the rule. Select the tag, make the rule. Okay, so I hit OK. So from the top, it's going to be 32 pixels to the top. We're going to do a left padding of, say, 10 pixels, and the other left, a right padding of 10 pixels, and a left padding of 10 pixels. Okay, now, let's say you forgot what the width was. Well, let's just hit OK, go back to the div tag, hold the command key down, you can see it's 331 pixels. So 331 is basically the leftover space, so it's going to be pixel perfect. It's going to be no mistakes. It's going to fit exactly in there. So I already have a rule for this, site adds. So I double click or hit the pencil icon, and I type in box 331. Now, this has padding from the top, but I can't take nothing away from nothing, but I do have to take the right and left padding away. So that's minus 20. Now, technically, I can float them all to the left. But just because we can, let's just float this one to the right. Let's float this site adds, we're going to float to the right. Make a change, save a change. Make a change, save a change. Okay, our next step is to define the rule for the footer tag. Now, notice the footer tag is up here. The footer tag really doesn't know what to do with itself. Now, what has to happen with the footer tag is the footer tag has to be set up in such a way that it ignores the space of the floats known as clear. So the footer tag needs to have a clear assigned to it. So the only thing we're going to do with the footer tag right now is select the tag, and make a rule. So notice that the footer tag is basically ignoring the space that was once part of the site adds, main content, and news. So as an example, if I make a rule for this footer tag, I'm just going to do a couple basic things here. First of all, we're going to put the type is going to be white. Now the footer is going to be smaller than the rest of the site, so we're going to make this 9 pixels, and we're going to make our type white. Okay, now if I hit the apply option, the footer text is now white, but I want to make the background color of the footer tag the same color as the existing footer, which is the same color as this navigation, or I'm sorry, this header. So I'm going to select this. Now watch what happens. If I hit the apply option, wacky, kooky craziness happens because the footer tag doesn't understand to ignore these div tags. So it needs to ignore the div tags, which means it needs to clear the space. This is called a clear. Now, on top of this, I intentionally made the site advertising float to the right. These two divs float to the left. So based on these choices, again, think Dreamweaver, think dialog boxes. Dialog boxes are simply choices. Based on these choices, I'm going to clear both. I'm going to clear both these two divs which have a left float and this div which has a right float. So if I hit the apply option, the footer tag now appears below this. Now a couple of changes to make to the footer tag. The footer tag is going to be aligned to the center, so center justified. So now the text is in the center, and let's say we're going to make the footer tag 25 pixels high. Now we're going to use our comp for that exact specification, but I just want to share with you a technique here. So I want to make the footer 25 pixels high because I want to vertically put the type in the center of the div. Now, you go ahead and make your box height 25 pixels high. Watch what happens. It didn't put it in the center vertically of the div, it put it in the top. Now I gotta play games with padding. You can avoid that from happening simply making your line height, make the line height 25 pixels high. Hit the apply option, problem solved. If I make it 50 pixels high, it's vertically in the center. If I make it 35 pixels high, it's vertically in the center. Now this works with one line of type. If you do more than one line of type in your footer, it doesn't work. So 25 pixels high for the footer. For now, we'll make changes to that later. Make a change, save a change. Now let's look at our CSS for a second. This is set up exactly how it appears on the page. This is how your information should appear on the page. Now, so what I want to have happen is wrapper tag is the entire site, followed by branding tag, followed by site nav, followed by container wrapper. Inside the container wrapper from left to right is news, main content, site ads, then footer. Now this is a very important step here because you don't want to someday juggle 4 or 5 sites a month. Maybe more. You don't want to say, well, this client puts the wrapper tag up here, this client puts their body tag down here. You would drive yourself insane. Come up with a simple system that works. List your CSS rules in the order they appear on the page. It's much simpler to make changes 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 years down the road.